flow, that lukewarm joint is straight ghosted, fam. That cultural Catholic biz, man, that's old news, kicked to the curb. The crusader spirit's wildin', rolling in hella deep. We about to scoop up this whole world for Christ, going full tilt, no frontin'.
You look way cooler as a black guy than I do. I got.
That's because you. There was not much change to make you look black.
Okay. So we're skipping Rerum Novarum tonight because we have an interview on Thursday, and I'm going to be out next week. And I have so many freaking thoughts going through my head, man. Like, I saw the Odyssey, and I want to talk about that tonight because there's a couple of things that, like, I've heard 100 reviews on it, but I kind of had some different thoughts on it that I definitely want to get into. Like, I saw the whole thing as like an allegory for the church crisis. Like, I just couldn't help but see it that way. There's some things I hated about it. There's some things I liked about it. So we're going to talk about that. And then somebody tweeted something this morning that just annoyed me to no end. And I was just like, I'm so tired of like Protestant Catholicism. And it's a theme that Rob and I have touched on a bunch of times on this show. We've talked about how much Protestant culture is seeped into Catholic culture because of the converts that came in, which I'm not knocking converts. It's just something that kind of happened. Talked about like the testimony culture, things like that. But I kind of got those thoughts a little more succinct this morning through whatever the heck happened. And then Pope Leo came out with a little video that it wasn't really about the endless scrolling that caught my attention. He made a comment about promiscuity, and I was like, oh, I was happy to hear that, you know.
Well, hold on. So just to clarify, we will be watching a video from Pope Leo about, like not scrolling on endlessly online. How many of your own tweets will we be reviewing tonight?
Well, like I said, the thing in Leo's video that stood out to me wasn't about the endless scrolling. It was a good short, man. It is kind of odd to hear a pope speak in English properly, right?
It is
like
weird,
even when we had Benedict and John Paul II, like they spoke English, but like Benedict's English was way better than John Paul II's, but it was still very heavily German accented English. John Paul II, I felt like he couldn't really fluently speak English. He kind of could read it, so like he could read a sermon in English, but I'm not even sure he fully comprehended what he was reading. Now look, the thing is, I'm actually pretty good about my online usage lately. Like when I'm off, I'm not like you look through the weekend, like I'm almost never on there on the weekends. It's actually hard for me to get back into it. But then when we have to do the show, it's kind of show prep. So I'm working on figuring things out. And then also, like, the way Rob and I think is so completely different in that for me to get an idea like worked out, I kind of have to just throw it out there and get it into the Twitter world. Like if I didn't tweet that this morning, I'd have forgotten about it by the time we did the show. And I'm not good at like taking notes and stuff. So like, that's kind of like, Twitter's kind of like my notepad, and I'll just fire a thought.
That's what you are to Anthony.
What is it?
I said, hear that, everyone? That's what you are to Anthony.
Yeah, well, you guys are you're like my journal in a way so I said, like, the difference between me and you is
therapy.
Yeah, like I tweet before I think, you think before you tweet.
Yes.
Which is
why you make more money on Twitter than me.
But it's also why we're complimentary on this show.
Yeah.
It's like if I had to talk to me every episode, I'd lose it. If you had to talk to you every episode, you'd lose it. Like, you can't. It's kind of the reason this dynamic works.
If I had to talk to me every episode, neither one of us would talk. It'd be wonderful.
Well, I'm gonna be off next week. Yeah, Kale, I think you're very similar to me too, right? Like, Kale does that too. I'll see him tweet things sometimes that I don't even understand, and I'm like, what's he doing here? But then I'll see him flesh it out in a later tweet. Like, it seems cryptic sometimes what Kale tweets. I'll say this also. one of my favorite podcasts right now is Kale and Steve Skojak's podcast. Like I listen to every one of their episodes because it's like it's a break from like Catholic content, but it still has Catholic flavor because they like the other day Steve and Kale were discussing Steve was talking about when he was invited to Rome for one of these like super secret trad meetings. And it was just like really interesting because especially from him being outside of it now and looking back on it, he was explaining he got invited to Rome to go on one of like these secret trad meetups, and his experience of the people that he was there with made him go, I can't be a part of this just because I don't want to be involved with these people.
Hey, I
Like,
know that feeling.
I, like, I really could relate so much to what you say. You know?
The deeper we get involved, the more I understand that completely.
So yeah, so I mean, look, they're talking about completely different things than we are, but it was kind of, especially I was operating machine the other day, and it was good to just like listen to their stream of thought on how they work ideas out and stuff. It's
Hey,
people just
so
people just
Kale, what are you doing next Tuesday and or Thursday?
that would actually be an awesome episode, right? So all right, so
I don't
I'm
know
gonna
what
be
the
out
heck
next.
we would talk about. I'd leave that up to him probably.
Kale, would you be open to filling in for me next week one day? That would actually be I think that's actually the perfect fill in. Like you and Kale would have
That'd
a really good back and forth. I think that would be. Oh, he's going to be in Oxford. He's away. Oh man. So the botched murder we talked about last week. Yeah, somebody's asking what happened to the botched murder. We talked about that last week. You guys missed that. Yeah, so I don't know. And then I also had I did jot a few notes down because I couldn't really put everything into my tweets, but I saw them arguing with like Patrick Madrid over the Beatles again, and Patrick Madrid blocks people if they say the Beatles suck.
That's how Jason got blocked.
That's how Jason got blocked, right? And I'm like, I think I understand what the Beatles thing is. Because I like the Beatles, but it's not necessarily about the music. It's because when I was a kid, my dad loved the Beatles. And when I hear Beatles songs, it makes me think of being on my dad's boat with him as a kid. So it's like a nostalgia thing for me. It's not so much that like I actually like the music as much as it kind of transports me back to my childhood a little bit. And like I have some really good memories of just like
Same reason why I
kid.
love the song Erica.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of how memory works and nostalgia works. So, yeah, that was one. And then I had some thoughts about Trump and Francis, and then also the spirit of Vatican II. So we'll get into all that tonight. We got a long show ahead of us. We also have a great knickknack success story. I'm hearing Sean Ryan. Somebody sent Sean Ryan some knickknacks, and then he went on Tucker Carlson's episode and he said that he's back at mass and he's taking his faith very seriously. So shout out to Knickknacks. Knickknacks got another knickknack success story. So go to knickknack.com, use code. Come on, help me out here. Bring the banner up.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Killing me here.
Yeah, I know.
Go to knickknack.com, use code AB25% for 25% off your first purchase. Use code AB10 for 10% off subsequent purchases. And if you really want someone to convert, you have to give them the Knickknack Black Monk Rosary combo, because that is like, forget it. You know, you do something like that and there's no chance the person stands any more of their atheism or Protestantism or anything. So go to he also said Alp sucks, straight to Tucker's face. That's awesome. Yeah, go to Black Monk Rosaries, use code Avoiding Babylon for 10% off your or any Black Monk Rosary. We love Black Monk Rosaries. If you don't pray your Black Monk Rosary, you're not on the team. Steve was making fun of that too. Like the Steve Skojak, he's like, it's something I struggle with in the space we're in as well, in that like being a trad, right? Like you're expected to hold certain opinions and you're expected to be a certain amount of like corniness. It's like I've always resisted that. That was the episode. If you guys want to check it out, they were talking. It was actually their Candace Owens episode where Kale has this really good thesis on like profilicity and like how we put ourselves out into the online arena and stuff like that. But yeah, like the trad profile, like the typical trad profile, I think the two of us strongly try to reject it, not because we don't believe the traditional faith, not because we're not trads, just because
tweet is itchy.
Yeah, well, no, it's more just like the whole what would you call it? Like the not the trad aesthetic, even like the
trad LARP.
Yeah, like the especially the content creator space, like the traditional Catholic content creator space is something that I don't know. I never felt like I really fit in, but it goes to this larger question. Should we do Pope Leo first before we get into
very
the culture
stuffy. You're
thing?
right, Gail.
It's very stuffy, and yeah. All right, but that kind of will piggyback into the culture debate. Should we do that first, or should we do the Pope Leo thing?
We should probably do the lead
first. All right, we won't bury the lead. We'll do the Pope Leo video. We'll play that real quick, and then I want to talk about like why Europe has these beautiful cultural Catholic. It's like a beautiful Catholic culture that came from Europe, and then when you get to America, it's like we will look on at that and we'll be like, look how beautiful Catholicism is, but then we've failed as Americans to produce our own unique cultural Catholicism, right? So it's something I know Rob has some thoughts on it. I have some thoughts on it also. So we'll get into that next. But all right, let's jump into Pope Leo's short, like 2-minute little video he put out that I actually did enjoy.
I hate that it's Pope Respecter getting all the views for this.
Who cares? He clipped it.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, let him get it. Who cares? No volume.
What?
I don't hear it. Let's see. Try it now.
First of all, you said no volume before
I didn't hear it.
Sound came out.
Okay.
Is it really possible to have joy in such difficult circumstances, we might ask? It is only possible if our life is founded upon our relationship with God as a loving Father. The joy St. Francis was speaking of cannot be found through electronic devices, spending hours in front of a screen, endlessly scrolling on social media every day. These activities often waste precious time that could be used for moments of silent prayer, of cultivating authentic friendships, spending quality time with family, learning more about our faith, studying, or playing sports. Joy should never be sought through drug use, alcohol abuse, promiscuity, superficial relationships, obsession about our image, or any kind of damaging behavior. Surprisingly, neither can it be found in goods such as wealth, beauty, fame, or even health, for one day we will leave all of this behind. Only the love of God can provide us with true and perfect joy.
I don't know. It's like a very simple thing.
Very Augustinian.
Yeah, I liked that because the whole time I was listening to it at first, I was like, all right, this is kind of, just, it's kind of like simple, like, okay, don't endlessly scroll. But then when he got into promiscuity and even material possessions and stuff, it's like, because one of my biggest criticisms of the modern hierarchy is that they don't touch on a lot of these topics at all. And they just want to touch, like, he didn't mention anything about climate change. He didn't mention anything about, any of the normal nonsense you're hearing from Rome. So it was, look, I know it wasn't some fiery sermon that he gave. I just thought it was a good message that he gave. And I it's not good to have this immediate suspicion of the Pope and trash everything he does, right? So if he puts something good out, like, commend him for it. And that is actually the message I think priests should be hammering down on in their homilies now, because this is like the stuff that's actually facing young people.
Yeah.
This addiction to their phones, the looking at pornography, this using each other for satisfaction in ways that isn't the marital union, things like that. So it wasn't even the dopey way of saying these things. No, he kind of
right. It was simple, but it didn't need to be anything more.
Yeah. So I'm going to
Yeah, he did say sell the boat. I heard the Pope say.
I know.
Well, then
Look,
again, water skiing's a sport.
well, I'll tell you and Kale, please don't leave because I want to talk about this because something very important happened that I have to discuss with you guys. Really weird. Like Kale knows about this a little bit, but we'll talk about that in a second. But it goes back to kind of the Beatles thing where I was saying I had these really great memories from my childhood about being on my dad's boat. I always wanted my kids to have those memories. So that's like the two things I remember from my childhood the most were going on my dad's boat and snowboarding. Those are two things my dad gave me that I just like, I loved them so much. I wanted to make that a tradition I passed on to my kids. Right. Like this is like every time the weather changes, my kids start to get excited that snowboard season's coming up. Then towards the end of the winter, they have boat season coming up. Like they get excited to be out on the water. And it became just this tradition that I do with my kids. And I hope that my kids pass it on to their children. This comment real quick. So Kale and I, all right. So Steve put out a tweet the other day. Steve Skojak put out a tweet the other day saying, so I think everybody knows the story of Steve Skojak. He used to run 1 Peter 5, and then he had a real crisis of faith, and he wound up selling 1 Peter 5 to Crisis. But Steve's been going through some stuff where his family situation is kind of chaotic right now, and he wrote a tweet the other day saying, I find myself praying to God, even though I'm not even sure if I believe in God. And he kind of said, I'm not sure if I should just do the thing. Like, should I just LARP and do the thing, even if I don't necessarily believe it? So I called Cal on the phone and we talked about this. And I said, yeah, like 90% of being Catholic is like doing a thing you don't want to do. Right. And it led to this conversation he and I had about daily mass versus Sunday mass.
I mean, faith is that kind of is faith, right? Doing things that you don't have necessarily intellectual certainty for, but you still do them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because like LARP, because fake it till you make it. Right?
There really is something to it.
Like do the thing. And it will like faith may follow from doing the thing, right? So we had this interesting conversation about daily mass versus Sunday mass. So there's a St. Joseph's in Queens has a 7 a.m. daily Latin mass that I'm sometimes able to like go and slip into before work.
Yeah.
So like my guys will be out and I'll be able to slip in, and I'm like, I can't wait to go to it, right? I'm like super excited to be able to go in and catch a daily mass. Kale was telling me
I would give anything to be able to like have a 7 a.m. low mass all by myself.
So Kale
you know
was he's like, I go to daily mass 4 times a week. But both of us were like, but why do I not want to go on Sundays? Right? Like there's Sundays
you have to.
It's the obligation. Like I go every Sunday, but it's this weird thing where when you're not being forced to go, you get this like real joy from going to a low mass. First off, it's way less there's way less theater to it. There's usually no singing. It's kind of just you go in, you have some quiet time. You can, even if you go to a daily Novus Ordo, it's like that. Yeah. You go in and it's very quiet, and
there's often no cantor.
Yeah, no altar servers, nothing. You're kind of just going, it's like going to a low mass, you know? And yeah, it's the quiet, and versus you go on Sunday and there's 1,000 people there, and you know, it's just not the same intimate experience, but you still go, right? So you like 90% of being Catholic is you just do the thing, even if you don't necessarily want to do the thing. So Kayla and I had this whole discussion about daily mass. And Thursday night, my sister texts me and she says, no, actually it worked like this. My mother called me on Friday. I was out to dinner with my wife, and she goes, "Aunt, I don't know why everyone always calls me and makes me do this. I don't know why your sister won't just call you, but your sister told me you have to go to daily mass, and it's Friday night." And I'm like, "What?" Like she's like, "Teresa wants you to go to mass tomorrow," and I'm like tomorrow for the 5 p.m. for something. Like what? I don't know what she meant. She goes, "No,
Right.
she said you have to go to mass tomorrow." I don't know. I don't understand this. So I'm like, "All right, I'll call Teresa." So my sister Teresa tells me, she goes, "Aunt, look, I don't know if I'm crazy." She goes, "I might be crazy." She goes, "I was brushing my teeth and I got kind of this like burning sensation in my hand, and I heard tell Anthony to go to daily mass." She goes, "I don't know if it's just in my imagination. I have no idea what it is. But I just had this conversation with," and my sister then launches into, she goes, "Aunt, all I know is when I go to daily mass, it's like this amazing thing. And I love going. I start my day off doing it, but I never want to go on Sunday." So she literally says to me the exact same conversation Kale had with me like 12 hours earlier. And I'm like, this is so weird. So now my wife was going into the city on Saturday to go to a museum with her friend. Okay. And I'm like, Ocean, if you're just gonna start simping for me, I'm gonna block you for simping for me, okay? I know what you're doing. You're not gonna just sit here and simp for me in the comments because I yelled at you last episode. I will block you for simping.
It took me a while to realize what he's doing.
I hate positive Ocean way more than negative Ocean. So go back to making fun of me. All right. So
oh my gosh.
So my wife was going into the city Saturday to go to a museum with her friend, and she was going to take the train in. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't want her taking the train in. And I'm like, I guess I'm driving her into the city so that I can go to low mass in the city. Because like the only daily Latin mass I could go to is Holy Innocents. So my Saturday, I was going to do things around the yard, and instead I'm leaving my house at 10:30 in the morning to drive my wife into the city, to drop her off at the museum, to meet a friend, to then go to mass in the city. And I'm waiting with like this anticipation, like what's going to happen at this daily mass, you know? And I go in and it was very uneventful. It was very uneventful. I mean, look, it was the holy sacrifice of the mass, but it was very uneventful. Like nothing happened.
I was waiting for, and this old woman was choking. I had to give her a Heimlich maneuver, and I saved her life.
I kind of went not sure like what was going to happen, and I didn't want to go expecting something to happen either. Like I don't know, like my sister might just be crazy, you know, or maybe you really don't know. Maybe God wanted me to drive my wife into the city because something was going to happen to her on that train. Like you really don't know.
I would have packed at least 2 extra guns that day just in case.
Yeah, but you really just don't know what God's up to with things sometimes, you know. But I just took my wife into the city, went to the daily mass, and then
she wouldn't have driven by herself, right?
She won't drive into the city. I won't let her. So she was going to take the train.
Because if that was the case, then you definitely saved her life.
Yeah, and also like I did just have a nice ride with her, just like me and my wife like sat and got to talk for 2 hours while we drove in and stuff. But it was just kind of strange how like Kale and I had that conversation, then my sister called me with that conversation. And
did you have any desire to go, hey sis, why didn't you have that burning sensation before you reached for that lawnmower?
Different sister.
Oh, okay.
Different sister. I have a lot of sisters. Different sister, yeah. No, it was just like it made me like ask the question, like, has anybody had any like has anybody had any supernatural things happen, like things that they just couldn't explain?
Yes.
You know, because you hear stuff like that all the time. And I thought this might have been one of those situations, and it wound up not being anything spectacular, and it was just going to a mass, you know, but I don't know. It was just interesting the way that whole thing played out.
I definitely have, and I'm pretty sure I've told the story on here before, so
let's hear it.
Okay. I suppose. Okay.
I mean, you're on a show. You can't
I
do
know
that and not tell the story.
I'll save it for locals. How about that?
Okay. Okay, so let's get into the culture thing, though.
Yes.
So, okay. This is why I tweeted it, because I would totally have forgotten like what my point of this was. So
yeah, guys, these are the tame
I
body
knew
stories.
what I was getting into. These are the tame stories. Well, somebody had said to me, like, why do you always have things happen to you? And like part of it is because I'm out in the world a lot. Like I don't have a desk job. I'm always kind of out and about doing things. And you know, I work in the city and I'm around people all the time, and stuff just kind of happens. Like, and the stuff with like my sister, I don't know. I have a big Catholic family, so like weird things will happen like that. And I'll be honest. I wanted to ignore my sister like bad. I didn't want to go to mass on Saturday. Like I really didn't. Just because I had so many things to do, and this kind of threw a wrench in my entire day. Like I have my daughter's party coming up next weekend, and I have a million things to do in my yard and get everything ready. And it was just, you have to go to mass tomorrow. And I'm like, I really considered just ignoring what my mom told me and not calling my sister or anything. And I mean, I'm glad I went in the long run, just because you should never ignore God's promptings.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? Like I'd have felt terrible if I didn't listen, even though it wasn't an obligation to, you know. It's just, maybe my sister just had some wacky thought that went through her head. And you know, women, they're always saying, God told me. All right, so somebody, a Catholic tweeted something this morning that just made me just cringe. And the thought,
what was it?
I forget what it was, but this thought kind of came to my head, and it's something Rob and I have talked about on this show from time to time. But the whole thing kind of like came together for me this morning. So I wrote, American Catholicism is largely just intellectual Catholicism, heavily influenced by Protestant converts and the American Protestant culture they converted from. It's why the videos of Holy Week in Spain get so much traction on this site. The American convert looks on and says, look how beautiful Catholicism is, while failing to produce our own unique Catholic culture ourselves. I'm not knocking converts, just making an observation. I think outfits like Catholic Answers are great for answering Protestant objections to Catholicism, but they've also created a Protestant ethos where Catholicism becomes something like faith alone plus the sacraments. It's still mainly based on what you believe rather than how the faith is embodied. It's quote mining certain scriptures to combat the quote mining of other scriptures. The closest thing we get to genuine Catholic culture is at ethnic parishes that have a remnant preserved from their European heritage. So you'll get Polish parishes or Italian parishes that still do processions, but there's nothing that is unique to America, and we should work towards changing this. Now, a lot of people will like, I think Ryan's in the chat. He said like, I don't, it would feel performative to do something to like it. So I want to talk about like the obstacles to building that uniquely American Catholic culture. And I want to talk about maybe some small things and what genuine true culture actually even looks like.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be performative. It should be something like building a small family tradition that you do year after year that eventually kind of gets a little bit added to it, a little bit added to it, a little bit added to it. And then all of a sudden you kind of have this unique thing that you do with your parish family every year. And I think one of the main obstacles, look, there's tons of reasons for this, right? You can't leave the council out of it. Changing the form of the liturgy itself was a huge blow to anything that could have arisen from it.
He was talking about King Deplorable, who isn't around.
No, I'm talking about you, Ryan.
No,
I was talking about this, Ryan.
I don't think it was. I think it was.
Oh, it was King Deplorable? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get you guys confused a lot because you guys both have a similar PFP. So, yeah, like the council itself, right? Now, after the council, the hierarchy drops the ball with catechesis completely. And what you get is the Protestant converts of the 80s and 90s. You get Catholic Answers comes up. You get Steubenville pops up. And that's kind of the main like driver of catechesis for Catholicism, other than like your local parish CCD programs, which kind of fell apart in the 80s and 90s. Like things were so nuts at the parish level, unless you had like a vibrant, good parish, there wasn't really great catechesis. So people were finding these cassette tapes and CDs and things like that. That is what kind of taught them the Catholic faith. And they were taught the Catholic faith by these Protestant converts, which is a largely intellectual pursuit because they're coming in through argument, but they're not being persuaded by beauty and culture necessarily. Like the beauty of the faith, sure. And we all talk about truth, beauty, and goodness. But you're like, these Protestant converts are not from ethnic communities. They're not from like your local Polish parish or your local Italian, they're not from those communities. They're largely American Anglo Protestants that intellectually convert and then are kind of just left to say, okay, well, I have the faith, but what do I do with it?
What made me kind of sad about your tweet is that I grew up in a good parish, and there really was kind of a Catholic culture. I grew up in that good parish and in my town. It was largely at that point a town still of descendants of like Croatian and Polish immigrants. All of our big events in the town happened at the Croatian Hall. People went to drink at the Polish National Alliance, which was in the bottom of someone's house, the basement of someone's house, stuff like that. And like our parish had processions. We had a Fatima Cadet youth group. We did things. I mean, this is probably more of something from the 1960s, but we did a living rosary once a year. We had May crowning events, where everyone I knew took part in, right? All the kids I knew, all the families I knew in town, we were all a part of it. And we had a big annual parish festival that lasted 3 days, and a ton of other stuff.
But like you're saying, like that's coming from a European, the remnants of a European culture.
Yeah.
That kind of carried over here.
But what made me sad is like that, even there now, that's gone.
Yeah.
Like the parish that I grew up in had to be combined with another parish, in town, and eventually shut down until it became a TLM oratory. And now it's, in terms of number of people going to mass there, it's probably as busy as it was when I was a kid, but the community that was there is all gone. Now it's broken up. Yeah. It's people that drive in from all over the Minneapolis and St. Paul, and like they don't do the festival anymore. They don't have all the events anymore. So like that culture I grew up in is, even where I lived, is gone. And like I don't have that to give to my own kids now. I can't find it anywhere anymore.
The thing is, you think to even that period you're talking about growing up, and it's like you would go to those events. Your kids, if you're a parent and you have children, you're meeting other parents with their children, and now your kid could meet their future spouse at one of these events, and that's how you kind of carry that culture on.
Mm-hmm.
The way things are done now, it's like people are meeting their spouse on Catholic Match, or they're meeting, you know what I mean? Like it's such a weird way how people are even meeting each other. My local parish does the first Sunday of the month. They do the get together down in the parish basement, and they have stuff together, but it's not like the community center.
Right.
It's not like it was 50, 60 years ago, even, where, I mean, people are just so dislocated from one another from the online stuff, that the way these cultural traditions form is by having in-person meetings, right? Like you get together with each other and you start this small tradition, like, I mean, your best bet for getting something like that would be if you're in a small country town and your parish really is like the center of the vibrant life of your community. But it's so, I mean, for me, coming from New York, it's and I'm parish hopping. Like I'm not even at the same parish every Sunday. I'm going the first and third to the one that's closer to me, and then all the other ones I'm either going into the city for, or I'm going to freaking Glen Cove for. Like I don't have a focal point where my children have friends at the parish and things like that. It's just, and you add into that like the sex abuse crisis. Nobody really wants their kids getting close to any of the priests anymore, because we have this this distrust of the priests, even if they're good men, like you just have this intuitive distrust of them. And it's like, how can we even form our own American tradition? Somebody was making jokes. They're like, well, how do you add Costco, Buc-ee's? like what is real Americana that you
and I think that's the problem, because like the culture and community I grew up in, it wasn't destroyed by Vatican II. It had survived Vatican II, right? Like this was in the late 90s and early 2000s. It had survived the worst of it. It was destroyed by like corporate globalism that's, destroyed every other aspect of local cultures these days.
That's what it is. Like, so much of this was social engineering, right? Like, so much of it was breaking up the cities and pushing them to the suburbs, which, if you look to 1950 suburban life versus 2026 suburban life, even that is drastically different. You know what I mean? Like, even when we got pushed out to the suburb, like when I was growing up as a kid, I knew all my neighbors. Like it just all the, and especially because I grew up on a block with a lot of kids on it, so all the kids from the neighborhood played manhunt. I lived on a court too, so like all the kids on my block played manhunt together every summer, and we, but half of them were Protestant. There wasn't like anything that like really united us other than we lived on the same block. It's just so different now. I don't know if you could, especially because the liturgy has changed so much. Like there's nothing deeply forming the American soul in the Catholic, like in true Catholic sensibilities anymore. It's like the new mass is just kind of like this Protestantized. I don't know, man. It's just,
but there's I don't know if we would have more of a Catholic culture right now in the country if we all had the TLM.
Yeah.
It maybe be a little better, right? There'd probably be a greater number of people who stayed Catholic, but I think you still have all the other same forces at work.
Yeah, there's so much going on during this whole period, the past 75 years, that have kind of destroyed the fabric of Catholic identity completely. It's not just the council. It really isn't. It's all these other forces. It's the way media functions now. It's the social engineering breaking us up. It's like you don't have human connection the way we once did. It's and the way it is now, especially for those of us who do travel to go to a traditional mass, like you don't live close to the people at that parish.
No,
you just don't. We're all driving from all these. So it kind of goes to like E. Michael Jones's point about that, but there's no way around that, because even if I was going to go to the Novus Ordo near me, I'm not going to go to my local Novus Ordo because it's so bad. So I'd still be traveling even to go to a semi-decent Novus Ordo. Like they really destroyed the whole idea of community with the
and even if everyone went to their local parish that was nearby them, and you were at mass every week with the same people that live near you, like all the other aspects of a culture are gone. Like there is no more folk music, that people share, that people can dance to at community events, right?
Yeah.
That's been entirely destroyed. There's hardly any more even like regional cuisine, right? Like, Minnesota's got tater tot hot dish. And people talk about lutefisk, but no one's ever actually had it.
Even
all these other aspects of culture, they're just gone.
Even when I came to Minnesota, like you took me to a Russian restaurant. It's like,
right.
It's not like you're taking me to some local delicacy. You're taking me to, which is totally fine too if you have a large Russian community living there, and they all have the bonds of just community within like there's something to be said about how there used to be ghettos. You used to have the Italian ghetto, the Irish ghetto, all of that, and then your kids would marry within that community. But the way things are now, ever since the social engineering, it's like I think about it with my kids, man, because my wife is half Italian and half German. So her dad's Italian and then her mom's German, right?
That's
And
exactly where I took him. Yep.
yeah, he did. Wait, one other thing that was funny. Ocean said something. Hang on. Let me find it. He
Oh,
said,
there is one culture that has folk music and cuisine.
wait. Well, wait, what did he say? Ocean made a joke about Catholic Match sponsoring our show. I'm trying to find it. Because funny you guys should say that.
I might have mentioned it in the Guns and Rosary show that he was in.
Yeah, so Catholic, the guy that runs Catholic Match, Ocean made a joke. He said Catholic Match now sponsoring AB. The guy who runs Catholic Match actually was like, he used to give us like $600-700 super chats early on. And he wanted to sponsor our show, but he was afraid that we were too controversial.
And he was right. I mean, let's be honest.
He's like, I don't know. I could maybe do like a Pints with Aquinas or something, but I don't think I could actually I don't know if I could let you guys advertise for Catholic Match. But meanwhile, like our show would actually probably be a great place for him to advertise because the people watching our show take their faith seriously. So I mean, whatever.
Well,
anyway.
Never mind. I was going to say.
Yeah, it goes to this. So like, what are some ideas for ways you could start it? I mean, some people had some good ideas in that thread where you could start pilgrimages, like small pilgrimages with your parish that aren't like these grand distances. You just walk from like maybe one parish to a like if there's a what do you call them? Oh,
Shrine.
Yeah, shrine. So you do like a 5-6 mile walk to a shrine with your parish community and just start doing it. And if you do it once a year and then you but
Dude,
after
most
5 years,
Catholic parishes aren't with 5 or 6 miles of a shrine.
no, but maybe you don't start it from your parish, you know. Maybe you find there's a shrine and you say, okay, let's plot a walk that we do every year. I mean, if it's something in Manhattan, you could do it from one parish to another. If it depends where you are in the country, but you have to get the men at your parish to organize it and say, hey, look, what if just once a year on the second Saturday of June or in May, right? Like for Our Lady, do something during May for the month of Our Lady and just say on the second Sunday of May, we get together and we do a 3-mile rosary walk together. And like you do that. And by year 3 or 4, you start introducing little things to it. So it's not this performative thing. It's more organic. And then that's how you would kind of start building one of these traditions. But because we don't do that as Americans, I don't, like we're kind of hoping for like in New York, you have the San Gennaro Fest where it's the Italian immigrants that came over, kind of kept that tradition and they still do march those statues through. And one of the priests I'm friends with, Father McDonald, he's going to a parish with a heavy Spanish community because he speaks really fluent Spanish. I was talking to him about it. And it's like, those Spanish communities, man, they kept a lot of their traditions from their home country and they bring them back and they still do a lot of those beautiful things, So, but we have to do some that are uniquely American for those converts that come in and they want to.
What is uniquely American?
I don't know. It doesn't have to be.
At this point in time, like I think that's the problem.
It would be bizarre if we wore the KKK hoods like the Spanish do, is what I'm saying, right? Like, not that they're, you know what I'm saying?
There may be some misunderstandings.
Right. So it would be bizarre if we tried to mimic what the Spanish do during Holy Week. But we could do something on our own with more of an American flavor to it. It doesn't need to be a copy of the European format. I just don't know what we would do. Yeah, it could be like, it could be Archbishop Fulton Sheen after his canonization, like make the procession in honor of Archbishop Fulton Sheen and do something unique to him, I guess, right? Because these processions start as like devotions to saints, don't a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
So
I just think that the heart of the problem is that in most of the country we've lost everything that is unique, right? I think that's, when you say uniquely American, your average person couldn't describe something that is actually uniquely American, other than the
Trash.
worst things about America.
Yeah, we have so like like if you're gonna really describe American culture, it's like, I mean, I guess cowboy culture is American, and what fireworks on 4th of July. like what is America never had a real culture. That's
No,
because it's made
there were
dis-
regional cultures, but
Yeah.
those are gone now too.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I think you could say something like the hillbilly Thomas, right? Those Dominican monks that play bluegrass, like
Yeah.
that I think is a uniquely American expression of Catholicism right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually interesting. Yeah, it is. Yeah, maybe it's something like that. I don't know. It probably really does need to be regional and uniquely regional to each person's location, right? So I think it needs to start at the parish level. I think that's really the only way to do it. You have to start it at your parish level. You got like us younger. I mean, I'm not young anymore, but like the younger guys that have young families, young children, you, Rob, and all the guys that, like, the problem is you're in the middle of nowhere too. You're traveling so far for mass too. But if you live in a smaller town and you see the same people at mass every Sunday, like the guys got to get together and just go, dude, let's do something. Like, let's do something. Let's get something on the calendar and just set it, and let's start our own little thing and see if that turns into something. It doesn't have to be weekly, because it's hard to do things weekly. People are busy. People have a lot going on, but yearly or seasonally, something like that.
So Bobby says avoiding Babylon National Park meetups. One thing like my parish did growing up is we would do an annual youth trip to the Boundary Waters.
Yeah.
Here, which is something a lot of people do in Minnesota, but we did it as a church youth group, and you'd have men's group and women's group, and the priest would be with the men's group, but you'd meet up in the morning from different campsites every day for the priest that was with you to do an outdoor mass, in the middle of the Boundary Waters.
John Paul II style on top of a canoe.
Actually, yeah, basically, like that's how they often were. Yeah.
That was, honestly, that was actually kind of cool seeing those pictures of John Paul II taking the young students out up into the mountains and doing stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. We have to do something though. And this kind of goes to my Odyssey review a little bit too, because I don't know, this is going to be kind of a hard segue.
Really, you're trying, aren't you?
I'm trying to segue it, but I don't know. I don't know. Do we have any final points about the culture thing? Like, because the Odyssey thing was interesting to me, but it kind of does relate just because of the council and what we're talking about, them robbing us of these opportunities. Because when I watched the Odyssey, a couple of things. First off, it was very jarring to see Elliot Page. Like, the casting thing is a debacle. I'm sorry, it is. It's just the black girl is Helen of Troy, takes you totally out of it. Elliot Page takes you totally out of it. John Barenthal, he was in The Walking Dead. He plays like you remember
Yeah,
John?
He was in Fury, right, with Brad Pitt too.
He basically plays the same guy from Fury that he plays in this. Like he just
plays the same guy in everything,
right? So he's just John Barenthal, and he's just like that tough guy, Jewish guy pretending he's a tough rapper. Like, that's John Barenthal,
Louisiana. Well, the other John. How do you pronounce that name?
Leguizamo. He was okay. He was okay.
Yeah, I just can't stand him.
I did like Matt Damon in it. What I didn't like was Matt Damon's character Odysseus did not long to go home. Guys, if you're gonna, did I say she? I did not.
You said Elliot Page.
Yeah, I don't. If I gave the wrong pronouns, it wasn't intentional. Like, it's a girl, it's a she. I mean, I get confused because it's meant to confuse you.
It is
Ellen Page, Elliot. I don't know. You guys know I don't buy into the ridiculous nonsense. Whatever the hell.
Juno. I just call her Juno. That's
it's jarring to see a girl playing a guy, and it just took you out of it. John Barenthal was terrible. What I didn't like about Odysseus's character is that like he's not really longing to go home. Like I loved the Greek myths growing up, and especially the Odyssey. And it's like he was kind of like avoiding going home, right? But the things I loved about the movie was the ending. First off, the ending is phenomenal. Okay. So, but the way I saw it is Penelope's his faithful wife at home. He's off. He goes off to the Trojan War. He's gone.
Careful, guy. He's about to spoil a 3,000-year-old story.
3,000-year-old story. I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, he's off at the Trojan War for 10 years, and then it takes him another 10 years to get home. Okay.
Yeah.
His wife is Penelope is his faithful wife, and she's surrounded by these suitors who are all looking to basically pillage Odysseus's home. Okay. Yeah. And they're not just looking to like be suitors so they can marry her. They're looking to take everything from Odysseus, right? Like, and they're gonna take her, like, and she knows it, right? So she's trying to fend them off. And I couldn't help but see it as Penelope is the bride of Christ, and all the hierarchy is the suitors trying to just defile the bride and take the church. And Odysseus,
who's Odysseus?
Odysseus is the return of the king, dude. And when he comes back, he puts his house in order. Like, totally just puts it back in order. And there is hell to pay for all of these suitors who are trying to defile the bride. And it's like, this is the end of the story we're all waiting for. But it's not just the church. It's also our country. That they've allowed all these invaders and these suitors to come in that are trying to defile our country. And it's like, look, the main point of the story is Odysseus is dealing with all this trauma from what he did in the war. And it's like the one thing.
Trauma. That's such a modern thing.
It is. But I mean, you called it shell shock when the guys came back from World War I. Like there is something to seeing like atrocities that messes you up, right? Like they called it shell shock when the guys came back from World War One. They called it shell shock.
Yeah, but World War One is like, you can't compare World War One to ancient combat. Like, it is so inhuman on a whole level.
So he's not just dealing with what happened in Troy. He is dealing with what happened in Troy. He's also dealing with what happens to his men on the journey back, and he's dealing with a lot of stuff, right? But I gotta, man, I gotta. Like Peugeot kind of explained this, that it's like what it is even when you look at the post-war consensus, it's like we did some bad things during World War II. But that doesn't mean you let the suitors come in and just destroy your country because of this guilt, right? You still do need someone to come in and put the house back in order. And like that's kind of the moment we're waiting. We're all waiting on it.
I would say our problem is we have no guilt over World War II and what we did in it.
Okay,
sorry.
So, no, because
as America, anyways. Obviously, Germany is a different story.
Yeah, no, but the West in general, even if it's this false guilt from the narrative that came from it, right? Like it's the reason we opened our borders.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, well, we can't let another white nationalist society, like a German society, have pride in itself again. So like we opened up our borders and let all these savages come in through the borders. Right. And has to do with this guilt. And like the purpose of the story is that like, yes, okay, you can have this guilt from this thing that we did, but it doesn't mean you can't have the house put back in order. And we need the house put back in order. And somebody needs to come in and put the damn house back in order. And slaughter our enemies and make people pay for the crap they've done to our country over the past. You know what I mean? So like that, yeah. If you see the story in light of that, it actually is a really good story. It's just, it's dressed up in all this modern nonsense with the casting and the, like all that stuff. But like the ending, man, is just like, we're in the church right now with these suitors who are looking to rape the bride of Christ, and they're trying to destroy the church. Like I have 3 different tweets from bishops that I was going to highlight tonight. One talking about how we have to freaking basically worship Muslims. Another one talking about how the Latin mass is like people who are attached to the Latin mass are dependent upon it, and it's basically spiritual milk. And one day they'll have faith enough to come into the new mass. And it's like, these are the freaking suitors trying to destroy the church right now. And all we're waiting for is the return of the king to put the freaking house back in order. And it's going to happen. It's just, how long, Lord? Like, how long must we go on with this? But there's something to also, even Rob, do you have the clip of the priest I sent talking during Vatican II? I sent it to the Telegram. It was positive.
Oh, the one posted by the Chris guy. If you didn't verify it, I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, no. Just play it. It's just a priest during Vatican II talking. It's like an interview. Yeah, it's from that guy. It's from a Sede, but whatever.
Yeah, but he also tweets stuff that's just not true.
Oh, it's just a video clip. I mean, even if the like it makes the point that we're gonna go with.
You didn't.
It's worth playing because it kind of goes to this idea of a spirit that kind of came over these people. Like, this is even us in our country. Like, we all see how crazy it is to keep the borders open and let all these people come in, but it's almost like we're possessed by an outside force that it just won't allow us to stop this thing that we know is going to destroy us. It kind of gets to like this whole idea of spirits, and like even Benedict, when he talked about the spirit of Vatican II, like there was a spirit of Vatican II. It was Judas's spirit that kind of overtook these men. Now, this is just a video, like an interview clip or like a, whatever. Play it real quick. Let's see.
The priesthood, hoping that the celibacy requirement will be changed. But many are deciding they won't stay under any condition. One priest allowed PBL to film his last mass.
I am Father Bob Brousseau. I have been a priest of the Diocese of Oklahoma City and Tulsa for the past 13 years. Approximately 6 months ago, my bishop gave me permission for a leave of absence. During this period also, I have been employed by the Office of Economic Opportunity in Washington, D.C. As of today, I plan to discontinue all of my priestly functions.
Listen to what this guy says.
When I was ordained, this was the center of my life because I felt like this was the center of our religion, that everything was oriented toward the Mass. Certainly, I don't believe any such thing now. I think the real monster is the organization of the institution itself. And I think because everything must be passed down through the authoritarian structure, that it's an encroachment upon human freedom. To me, the important thing is to break that structure. Then I think after we break the structure, we ought to go on to the evaluation of individual beliefs, like the Mass. I think it's important that people communicate with each other, but I don't think they need a church or a public religious act as an excuse to communicate. In any community, it's very convenient for people to go to church. You want to be said to be a churchgoer. Your friends see you there. It's a time to dress up. It's a place to be seen, and it becomes a very social act, which in itself isn't bad, but it's associated with a kind of class distinction. And I always felt like the purpose of Christianity and religion is to get down to the nitty-gritty work of bringing equality and justice and fairness and love to everybody.
You can stand it. And like these men were possessed by a spirit. This revolution that was happening. Like I think we have a hard time. Like we look back upon it and we don't understand what was in the air during the 60s, man. Like it was just this spirit that overtook them. And even the spirit of Vatican II, like there is a spirit of Vatican II. It's just a dark spirit that pushed these men.
That doesn't even sound like Catholic modernism, though. That just sounds like evangelical from that guy.
Sounds like a Protestant, right? But it's just that spirit did. Do you think about it? Look, I'm sure a lot of people left the priesthood and left the convents because they were devastated at the changes. but there were way more that left because they thought like him, because they got caught up in this revolution and they saw the church as oppressive. Like, you think about how much enthusiasm these people went out of the count. Like,
then that guy would have left anyways. Don't you think? If his problems with the oppressiveness of the church. And he was ordained in 55 and was a priest for 10 years before the end of the council, he probably would have left anyways.
He might have. I think a lot of people still would have left, is my point. Even if the changes never happened at the council, is kind of my point. Like, the revolution in the air at that time, I think you would have still had tons of people leaving just from the propaganda they were receiving from outside of the church. Like, I think so many people correlate. It's like, oh, the changes happened and then everybody left. No, it's like, this was a spirit that overtook all of society, man. Like, to the point where at the council, they fell for this spirit that was just pressing in upon them. And the same thing is still happening to us today, not just in the church, but outside the church. Like, you're seeing, I know, like, conservatives and Republicans are like, well, build a wall and we're against this, but it's like this cultural suicide that we're embarking upon that we know is going to destroy us, but for some reason we can't stop it. Like, we just can't stop it. It doesn't matter who you vote for, who you put in. And it's easy to just blame it on the elder brother. But no, man, there is a spirit that, especially when you look at liberals and leftists and stuff like that, like, these people are overtaken by a spirit that they've just given themselves over to. It's not even something that's coming out from them. It's something being pressed upon them, and they're just going with it.
It's like, I mean, it's like watching the popes try to stop what. It's like watching the 19th century popes try to stop what was coming and not be able to.
Right.
And it's like them and people now. I think people don't realize, and probably don't want to realize, the level of violence that is actually going to be necessary to stop this stuff.
Dude, and I'm telling you, the Odyssey makes that point. Like, Rob, the Odyssey makes that point. Like, what Odysseus has to do to put things in order, he gets exiled for. Because the retribution is so intense. It needs to be. And that's kind of the point. Like, that's what, like, I didn't hate the Odyssey, man. Like, everybody's made, oh, this movie, it's woke, it's this, is that. Like, I'll be honest, the couple of, like, the casting decisions, they take you out of it it's a very small thing that they take you out of. If you overlook that and you just, like, take yourself out of the 5 seconds that Elliot Page is in the movie or whatever, and you actually look at the story, like, it's a good story for us to hear right now, because it kind of prepares people for what the hell needs to be done to fix the situation, which is complete violent retribution.
And, like, I'm not saying, obviously, like, it would be moral to start violence, but I think
it's just
I think if we put our foot down, the way, as strongly as it needs to be, the violence will begin, in response to that.
And I think they'll be prepared.
They will, yes.
They're going to start the violence if we just, like you said, put your foot down. But the point of the return of the king is also, like, I saw it as, like, the return of a good pope, or even the return of the King of Kings. It's the apocalypse. It's the just judge coming back and separating the wheat from the chaff. Like, it is a very Christian story. It's kind of weird because
in the history involved is an apocalypse in a sense too. This was the end of the Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations, basically.
So that was the other point I was kind of wanted to make, is that you could, like, Nolan is telling an apocalypse story, okay? Yeah. And he sees it. It's almost like Nolan can intuit we're coming to the end of a story in our own civilization. And the kind of wrapping up the point of the movie is him saying, let's not forget the things that made this culture good, so that whatever comes next, we bring those things on. it's kind of weird because the whole point of the movie is like this Christian principle of love your neighbor and treat others as you want to be treated, which is like nowhere near an ancient Greek principle like, at all. You know, it's like love your neighbor and treat others the way you would. It's like the golden rule is the point of the movie, and it's like the golden rule. The reason it was so revolutionary is because Christ said it, and it was never heard before. Like, you know, and it's like love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. Like, we're so desensitized to how radical that is. We're bathing in Christian waters, and we're so desensitized to how radical that message really is. It is a radical message that Christ comes into a world where an eye for an eye is seen as like that's not even really seen as justice. It's more like somebody takes your eye, you want to do 10 times worse to them. So eye for an eye was seen as kind of like moderating it. And Christ comes in and he's like, no, not eye for an eye. Turn your other cheek. Like, that's like, wait, what?
Well, I think we're so desensitized to it that we really don't understand it. We think, you know, love your neighbors and treat them as you'd like to be treated means we get to give them everything, right? Whereas if you truly love them and treat them the way you want to be treated, what they need. You set boundaries, right? And you recognize that what would truly be good for them would be to actually help them in their
own country,
their home.
Treat others as you want to be treated doesn't like I want to be treated good in my country, so I'll treat you good in your country. Like, that doesn't mean I don't want to be mistreated here. It doesn't mean let you walk all over me. It doesn't mean that. It's just, but I'm just saying, like, the movie itself is very Christian principles, you know. And I think what Nolan is trying to say is we're coming to the end of the world. Let's not forget the things that actually made our civilization great and forget those lessons, you know. Like and there's a point to that. Something's coming next, and we've talked about this before too, where the getting to the culture thing, right? We see the remnants of European culture, like Catholic culture, right? You see it and you're like, man, it was so great in the Middle Ages. Like, what comes next will not be that. It's going to be something different. But that doesn't mean there won't be remnants from that we bring forward.
Well, just like how the European medieval states brought aspects of Romanitas into medieval Europe, and could say, you know, potentially even improved on the good things.
So, like, the idea of Rome never ceased, even after the Roman Empire collapsed, right? And what came after Rome wasn't the Roman Empire, but it kept so many of the good parts of Rome, the system of governance and law and things like that it brought over, right? What comes next is not going to look like what we see now.
I hope not.
There are elements of what we see now that are good that we need to bring into the next phase of whatever happens. It does know there are many odysseys.
Yes, I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, no, but I mean, this one was so relevant because it was in the theaters, and the other thing is my daughter still loves to go to the movies with me, and while she still loves to go to the movies with me, I'm taking her to the movies because that's going away soon. Because it's like, you want to, as your kids start to get older, you just want to hold on to any of that special one-on-one time you get to spend with them. It's like, my daughter likes to go to the movies with me. We make a thing of it. We go to the supermarket beforehand, we buy a bunch of candy, and we go together, and then we talk about the movie afterward. And it's like, I'm not going to deprive me or her of that experience ever.
Yeah. So. Mina and I went to the live action Moana remake last week, just her and me. Well, in Bash, I took Bash too. And I get a big popcorn and a Dr. Pepper, thinking we could share it. I got 2 sips of the Dr. Pepper and I bought a handful of popcorn. And the 3-year-old ate and drank everything else. At one point, I reach over to get popcorn and it's gone. And she's got the empty popcorn bucket on her head while she's watching the movie.
You said the Sheep Detective movie was good, right?
The Sheep Detective movie was pretty good, actually.
Like, unironically, right? Like, it was actually a decent movie.
Yeah, it really was, actually.
Yeah, for a kid's movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like well, that can lead us into locals because I want to, man, we're doing a Deloney clip over there. We're doing a Deloney clip because we got a comment, and not even on Deloney. I don't even care about him. It's more about women being awful to their daughters-in-law. I want to talk about women being mean to their daughters-in-law. Just because I see a lot of it all over the place. Like I just see families being like women, especially if it's an only son, will lose their minds when their sons get married because they feel like they're losing their son to this woman they married. And I don't know. I just got some comments. And this mother's scenario where her son is married and he didn't bring the kids by for Halloween. And I'm just like, you awful woman, you are going to lose your son and your grandchildren. So we're going to do Deloney over there. We got some other stuff too, though.
I'll tell my supernatural story over there too if you guys want it again.
Supernatural story, and then man, I should do this before we go. While we're talking about the church and stuff, because I saw a clip of Fuentes talking about how nobody cares about politics anymore, and it's because Trump destroyed the prestige of the presidency in the same way that Francis destroyed the prestige of the papacy. And I kind of should have talked about this when we did the Leo thing, because Leo's clip today that we talked about was kind of just like a good thing a Pope said.
Yeah.
And it's like, because we did 13 years of Francis and he did so much damage to the prestige of the papacy, like we look upon the papacy with such suspicion now because of it. And it's like every little thing that comes out, we think we have to nitpick and find a little mistake he made. And it's like, man, I'm really angry with Trump and Francis for that. Like the two of them just kind of wrecked the prestige of those offices for us, where I don't give a crap who's running for the next election. And I'm jaded when it comes to even Pope Leo. And it's kind of sucks, but this situation we're in. So that was the point I wanted to make about that. But yeah. All right. So we're going to go over to locals. If you guys are not locals members, if you enjoy this show, how are you not? We've kept it at $5 a month for you guys. There's no other show that keeps it at $5 a month. And
Anthony's been talking, guys.
I'm going to threaten it.
$7.99, he says.
I'm threatening it. I haven't pulled the plug yet. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. But come on, man. Keeping it at $5 a month. Like, you guys think about how much you waste $5 on. Like, to come and sit and hang with us for the rest of the show.
Think how much inflation has gone up since 2022, guys.
And that's how long we've had it at $5, and we're keeping it there for now. So get over there. Come on, $5 a month, and you get to hear the rest of the conversation. Yeah, I agree, Molly. 100%. Locals live views should match the YouTube views. Like, it's just a continuation of this, except we get a little more personal, and we give you guys gossip that we won't say over here. We'll talk a little trash about.
And you get to join the Telegram group. And
speaking of which, we have there's somebody in our Telegram chat today that has been going through some suicidal ideations. So if you guys can say a prayer for what's his name?
Wesley.
Say a prayer for Wesley.
He also found out his dad just died today. So say a prayer for his dad.
Yeah, he's going through it. He's in the thick of it. So yeah, if you guys want to join our locals, if you want to come hang for the rest of the show, we're going over to locals now. So
wow.
We'll see you guys on the other side. You gotta show us on the tickets.
Yep.